From time immemorial, humans and monsters have been in constant conflict. Today is no different, as our protagonist, Kai, is fighting alongside other soldiers against a massive ape. Though small in stature, their unity and well-coordinated teamwork allow them to hold their ground. Kai calls out to Manso to help him take down one of the apes, but it's too strong and quickly separates them. Other monsters advance, surrounding Kai. Just as he's in danger, Aura, the eldest son of the Moloch family, comes to his rescue. He leads the army with extraordinary strength, earning the trust of everyone. To instill fear in the pigtail apes and force them to retreat, he activates the power of the Earth God within him. The tattoos that appear are known as the sacred crests, proof that he is a guardian blessed by the Earth God. After this empowerment, he effortlessly defeats several apes with ease. Seeing this, the leader of the apes steps forward to challenge him. This leader also possesses special powers, making this a battle between chosen ones. Speaking in human language, it declares its wish to end the battle here. The two powerhouses charge at each other, but with his agility, Aura successfully evades the ape's attacks and delivers a fatal blow, cutting through its body and felling it instantly. Victory once again belongs to humanity, bringing joy to everyone. They have successfully protected their village, while the apes are forced to flee back into the forest. After the battle, Kai and Manso reflect on what has happened. Luckily, we managed to live through another day. The collection team then presents the spirit stone, found within the apes, to Aura. He drinks it down completely to increase his fighting strength, while the others each receive only a drop as a reward. They perform a prayer ritual to the gods before consuming it. Everyone feels a significant increase in strength, but still not enough to fight the apes alone like Aura can. Eating the core of the spirit stone greatly increases spiritual energy, thereby enhancing the body. Kai wants more, but Manso sets him straight. We're just ordinary soldiers, we're lucky to have gotten this much. The rest of the stone will be transported to the castle for the rulers. Like Aura, Lord Bosco decrees that the majority of the spirit stones must be given to the guardians. With them, they can maintain stability after each battle, which is how humanity can triumph over the enormous monsters. This is the immutable law of this world. Soldiers like them must become stronger without relying on spirit stones, so they can survive and return home as they did today. That evening, the warriors are treated to a feast. Thanks to your bravery, the village is safe, Moloch, Aura's father, says with pride. Manso finds this old man's constant platitudes irritating. To give so little food and then make them wait. Only the leader's family ever has enough delicacies. Yet Kai is delighted to have even a few of these dishes. Everyone can only wish they could eat more and resolves to work harder. The captain gets a larger portion, causing jealousy. He smiles and tells them, if you were stronger, you'd get a portion like mine. Kai vows to train so he can soon achieve such results, but when he swings his staff, he lacks the strength, still hungry. Suddenly, he blurts out some strange words, like, I wish I had rice cakes to eat. Manso has no idea what rice cakes are and asks about them. Kai says he just remembered it in his head, but doesn't really know what they are. This isn't the first time, he occasionally remembers things like this. While talking about food doesn't fill his belly, it at least eases the hunger. Kai points towards the graves of his fallen comrades. Those with families have their names etched on stone markers, but for warriors with no one, only dry twigs mark their resting places, as no one mourns their deaths. Therefore, Kai vows to live, otherwise he'll be forgotten, as if they had never existed in the village. To survive, they must win battles. Kai thinks that if he possessed extraordinary power, he might make a name for himself. Manso thinks he's probably just delusional. Inside, the two Aura siblings are arguing about fighting. Jose also possesses power, so she wants to help her brother. Aura refuses because their father doesn't expect her to choose the same path as him. It's too dangerous and she could die at any moment. Women in the Baron's family don't need to go to the battlefield. Jose wishes she had been born a man. Down in the courtyard, the two brothers are still helping each other train. Manso thinks if Kai only knows how to retreat, he can never win a battle. He's quickly defeated and falls to the ground, but suddenly his mind recalls images from a previous life, living on Earth with incredibly modern things. When he regains consciousness, he blurts out words related to magic. Manso apologizes, thinking he's driven the protagonist crazy. Maybe he'll sit up and tell me he's fine, then he realizes he still has memories from his previous life. A place that people in this world don't even know exists. Of course, Kai has never told anyone about what he's experienced, because he doubts they'd believe him, so he just leaves it alone. In his old memories, he knows how to make delicious rice cakes, but unfortunately, that knowledge is useless in this life. If anything, maybe magic would be useful, but he knows that it's just fiction and doesn't exist in the modern world. If possible, Kai wants to use magic in battle because it would help a lot and also make a name for himself, gaining what he wants. At the same time, the village chief receives an urgent letter. It seems that a pack of ogres has appeared in the western forest. The battle will take place near Banya village and they must participate. Although this exhausts the soldiers, according to the agreement, they need to get there quickly before things get worse. Yesterday it was the apes, now it's the pigs. This is truly tough. The duty of the soldiers is to always be ready for battle, to protect the country at all costs, even their lives. The father sees that his son speaks truly. Kai is still awake, thinking about how to create fire in his hand. Manso asks, what's he mumbling about? Go to sleep so you have energy. Kai says he's just imagining scenes in his dreams. Manso says that long ago, a traveler said that maybe it wasn't a dream, and that person could also make flames burst from his fingertips. Just like what Kai was thinking, he seems interested, but Manso isn't sure if it's true because it's just a story he heard. Kai gets up very early the next morning, wanting to go to a secluded spot to practice. If what Manso said is true, maybe he can create magic. This is perfectly logical because, up to this point, he and the others have been gathering power by eating spirit stones in this world. That shows that this place was formed by a mysterious power source they call the Earth God. Spiritual energy is something everyone is born with, it gradually increases over time, and perhaps when enough spiritual energy is gathered, they can unleash magic. Kai tries to focus his energy to create fire, but nothing happens. He thinks the problem is how to concentrate the spiritual energy into one point, feeling that it's in his chest. He senses its aura inside his own spirit stone instead of his heart. But no matter how hard he tries, it's all in vain. The scene shifts to the battle at Banya village, which has already broken out. The incredibly strong pigs have killed many people. Everyone says they're as stupid as pigs, but these ogres are very clever. They hide in the forest, waiting for people to arrive before attacking, instead of foolishly charging straight into the enemy's base. Kai's village has also arrived to provide support. After discovering the monsters hanging people in the trees, they launch an attack, but it's not very effective. Kai is even tripped by the corpse of a comrade and can't move. The monster approaches. But luckily Manso defeats it before Kai is slashed. He is scolded and apologizes for being so useless and having a problem with his leg. At this moment, Aura enters the battle directly, slamming one of the monster's heads into the ground. Seeing someone with special powers, the pigs choose to retreat, and he bitterly chases after them. On the other side, Kai and Manso run into another ogre. Kai tells Manso to leave him behind, but Manso refuses. Knowing they can't run, the pig slowly approaches to enjoy the hunt. With no other choice, Manso says goodbye. Kai understands and is ready to die, so he doesn't blame him, because if he were in his position, he would do the same. He promises to clean his grave every day to remember him. He thanks him and continues to run in the other direction to help Manso escape. But really, he doesn't want to die at all. In his final moments, he continues to focus his spiritual energy to create magic. The large pig throws a javelin and then attacks. Kai is choked but doesn't want to die and continues to struggle. Suddenly, his finger creates a spark, and he knows he can do it. With his determination, Kai sticks his hand directly into the monster's face, then releases a flame that burns the monster's body, freeing himself. The monster then collapses, and Kai grasps the flame in his hand, becoming a fire fist. Seeing that it's still burning, he frantically tries to put out the fire but immediately collapses due to exhaustion. It seems that casting this magic has cost him all of his spiritual energy. Feeling death approaching, Kai still doesn't give up. He's created fire, so he can extinguish it before his life is completely drained. He imagines a hydroelectric dam and successfully closes it. However, the monster is still alive and drags Kai elsewhere. It seems its eyes are blind, so it's relying on its other senses to move. Knowing he's going to die anyway, Kai continues to struggle, slashing the monster before falling into the abyss. Luck continues to smile on Kai as he, still alive, drifts ashore. However, his spiritual energy is depleted, leaving his body severely weakened. Seeing the dead monster nearby, he struggles to crawl over to take the core from inside. This is the first time he can eat it in peace. After absorbing all the nutrients from the Godstone, Kai's condition visibly improves. He goes to a corner and sits, gazing at the sky and earth. The wound on his shoulder is so deep that blood constantly flows out. He figures he won't last long. The only comfort at this moment is perhaps dying in a place with wonderful scenery. Then, he faints, cut back to the village, where everyone is on high alert, fearing an ambush during the night. Manso sits alone, saddened because he was quite fond of the kid. Meanwhile, Kai is bathed in moonlight until dawn. He suddenly wakes up as if nothing had happened, even though yesterday he thought he was on the verge of death. Checking his wound, he sees that it is gradually recovering miraculously and is no longer painful. He thinks it's absurd to eat a godstone and recover overnight. Additionally, he finds the Ponlet stone slab, but doesn't know what it is. The only feeling it brings is that this thing is extremely familiar, as if he's seen it somewhere before. Curious, he intends to use fire magic to burn away the vines, but it explodes with a bang, sending Kai flying. After looking at himself in the water, he sees that he has received the blessing of the god. The divine crest on his face is denser than anyone else's. But the important thing is, he didn't expect himself to be a guardian marked. After examining the stone slab, Kai understands nothing and quickly looks for a way back, not even thinking about whether he is the chosen one or not. Just as he is about to climb up, the mark suddenly activates, causing him to lose control. At first, he thought the rocks here were softening, but it turns out to be the power within him. Moreover, he hears someone's voice urging him to leave quickly. Kai is a little scared and runs up with all his might. As a result, in less than a minute, he can escape the cliff just by running and jumping. Holding the new power in his hand, Kai is extremely surprised. It turns out this is the feeling he has always longed for. It turns out that enhanced physical strength makes everything easier. Sometimes even better than having magic. Kai wonders if this is truly the power from the protection of the god, since he hasn't done anything. The first thing he thinks about is that he will be able to eat more when he carries the guardian mark, but he suddenly feels a little worried about this, so he decides to keep the secret before finding out the reason for possessing the divine crest. At the village, the warriors are burying their comrades. Manso still hasn't found his little brother's body, so he is heartbroken. Just then, he sees him smiling and calling his name, making everyone rejoice. The war is over, and they return to their daily work. But what confuses the guys is that Kai hasn't shown any signs of fatigue since returning, while working several times harder than everyone else. They even have to stop him, otherwise he will till the whole field and there will be no work to do tomorrow. He also looks at himself in the water and is glad that the mark hasn't appeared, otherwise everyone will ask a lot of questions. The guys then talk about the abnormality of their younger brother, asking why he is so strong now. He has no choice but to lie, saying, "I ate my fill of godstone during the battle at Bania village. A bunch of orcs were killed in the forest, and my body was badly injured, so I ate more than a dozen at once, and that's how I gained this power." Hearing this, the team leader doesn't suspect anything, saying that's why he's so strong now. He once heard that some people have become incredibly strong after eating a lot of godstone. No one should have the right to possess so many, but this is a life or death battle, so he lets it go, and even praises his younger brother for seemingly finding the truth of his life. While they are talking, Kai is noticed by a beautiful girl. Elsa is also asked by the girls if she likes anyone, making her shy and go somewhere else. Cut to Lady Jose, who is inspecting the gifts prepared for the upcoming event. Although their land is poor, they can still grow crops like this thanks to the efforts of the Baron and the Earth God within him. Her father is also a guardian mark who protects his territory. Their strength makes the land fertile. At the same time, Kai is going to a place to practice using fire, and his spiritual energy is not affected like the first time. There is no doubt, he has actually possessed fire magic in his hands. However, he is quite curious whether this is from the protection of the gods. Just then, Jose passes by, causing him to startle and quickly hide the fire in his hand. Kai intends to leave, but is stopped because she is not stupid. She asks what he is doing here. If he doesn't tell the truth, she will arrest him and investigate. He has no choice but to reveal that he can create fire, but everything is still very vague because he doesn't actually know how to activate it. It's just that he accidentally awakened this ability while on the verge of death. Jose knows a lot of information and says that Kai may be a person with superpowers. There are people who use mysterious abilities that seem impossible. That is the name of the special family members from the Central Lands and a few monks. Hearing this, Kai is quite surprised that there are others who can do it besides him. And they even call it a superpower instead of magic. What is difficult to understand is that the young man is not tired at all. In addition, she also heard about the rumor that he ate a lot of godstone to become stronger from Kai. The reason he's not tired is probably because he possesses a lot of spiritual energy through absorbing the stones, which means there are many ways to become stronger and she always wants to be like that. So she forces Kai to practice with her. Since returning, Kai hasn't fought anyone, so he is also surprised by his abilities. After fighting evenly with the young man, Jose activates the guardian mark to make the battle more exciting, and also because he doesn't know how strong he is now, Kai doesn't dare to use his full strength, because if he does, the divine crest will be activated and all the secrets will be revealed. Later, he looks at himself in the water again, thinking to himself that he can fight evenly with someone who has the mark without using his full strength. The young man also has to bring water for the girl to wipe herself. Looking at the beautiful girl in front of him, he also looks shy. He talks about how he thought people with guardian marks were equally strong, but the strength of her and her brother is indeed far apart. Jose admits that she is still too weak, unable to compare to her father and brother. This power will change based on the strength of the god in the person and of course also needs to be practiced regularly so as not to rely too much on the divine crest. Then Kai says she doesn't need to practice so hard, implying that women shouldn't fight battles, making her angry. He thinks that even if they are female, once they carry the guardian mark, they need to have the responsibility of protecting the land. There will be times when strength is needed, so they try to practice to be like their brother and father, to become all-powerful. People like her need to win many life and death battles as possible, and there is another ability that she can do at this time. Because everyone has started coming, Jose has to go back first, otherwise her father will know that she is practicing and she will die. Kai is very curious about the last sentence, wanting to learn more. She says she really wants to tell him, but there's no time. However, she will be doing the monthly tomb cleaning soon, wanting to invite him to go together so he can answer questions. Her earth god is worshipped at Ida village, so she will arrange to help him go there with her in a few days. He and his older brother were given to go escorting. Ida village is the territory of the monkeys, so they must be vigilant. Luckily they haven't heard of any attacks recently. Some people ask Kai if the rumor that their teen was specifically named by the lady to go escorting is true, because it seems that she has noticed him. He is too shy. Fortunately, his senior helps him by saying that she doesn't know who Kai is. However, there are still many people who believe in the rumor, but the whole group turns to glare at Kai because he is being cared for by a beautiful girl. Arriving, they tell that this place used to belong to the Baron's family, but was forced to be abandoned after many monster attacks. Luckily there is still a tombstone that has not been destroyed. So every month people will come to clean and worship at the same time. Before that, this place was a field, but because it has been abandoned for many years, it is quite barren now. The grace of the earth god has also decreased and no longer reaches this land. That is the magic that the guardian marked help the crops grow. Then Jose specifically names Kai to follow and protect her, taking him to the flowers, and then activating spiritual energy to transmit it into the soil. Only those with guardian marks connected to the earth god can do this. This is her second ability. However, this place has been abandoned and the earth god has weakened, so it doesn't have much effect, just enough to keep this flower garden growing. The power of the person with the divine crest directly affects the land they live in, just like in the village, because her father is very strong. The harvest is always good. A lord is required to possess this ability to help people develop. After inspecting the tomb below, they both go inside to clean. There is also a pole-lipped stone slab here. The writing is exactly the same as what Kai found in the valley, which means that place used to be the tomb of a god. Suddenly he understands the ancient language and translates it by touching it. Kai also reads a few paragraphs, but there are also some incomprehensible parts that don't form a complete sentence, so he doesn't know what the real meaning is. Jose asks what he is mumbling, but he doesn't dare to say. Outside, the monkeys have discovered everyone's suspicious behavior and are watching. Meanwhile, the girl has just started offering gifts to her god. She wants this place to develop again and attract people to live in the future when she is stronger. The person with the guardian mark must have the responsibility to go with it. Kai also expresses admiration when he hears these things. After going up, they received the news that monsters were coming and immediately hid the tomb. Jose is forced by her subordinates to leave, but in the end she is surrounded. Seeing her flowers being trampled, she comes forward to threaten, but looks scared. Seeing this, Kai rushes in to help, single-handedly defeating two monsters. In that moment, Jose accidentally saw the dense divine crest on Kai's body, but the next moment it disappeared, making her think she was hallucinating. Need to learn how to fight. Hearing that, she couldn't argue. Her father was just glad she returned safely. He assigned her brother to patrol because an inspector from the central region was coming. He also ordered the soldiers to be aware of this. Jose apologized to her father for being useless, but regarding Kai's story, he was looking forward to meeting the strong young man. For a rookie to defeat those monkeys, that's impressive. On the other side, Kai was being teased by everyone, who asked if he was now a hero in the abandoned Ida village. He pretended that he was just desperate at the time, but the others had heard everything. It seemed he was very close to Lady Jose. Seeing them acting like a couple of lovebirds, the women in the village also noticed the squad leader and went to help their younger brother. And according to the women, only Kai had the potential to become a decent person. Hearing this, the girl next to them, Elsa, brightened up because she was interested in him. They reminded Elsa that if she liked him, she should take him, otherwise another girl would snatch him away. Just then, Lady Jose appeared and called Kai away to talk. He thought she'd discovered that he possessed the guardian mark, but actually, she wanted to thank him for saving her life in Ida village. She even carefully bowed her head to express her gratitude from the bottom of her heart. She was about to mention the divine mark on Kai's face but stopped herself, thinking, surely not, and repeated that she couldn't do anything when facing the enemy. Jose realized that being strong wasn't enough, she also needed a strong will. Therefore, starting tomorrow, she would come to train with him every day. She would be more diligent than before, and she hoped Kai would agree. Hearing this, he was surprised but couldn't refuse since she pressured him, so he had to agree. The guys outside, watching Kai being scolded, imagined all sorts of things. Later, while working, Elsa brought water to get to know him. Feeling shy, she pretended that everyone told her to bring it to them. Since he was thirsty, he drank it all and even praised it as tastier than usual. This made her very happy. She was about to talk to him some more, but someone called her, so the two promised to meet again later. Watching her leave, Kai still didn't understand what was going on, but his brother Manso did, guessing that youth has begun to blossom for you. He denied it and suddenly heard the sound of the bird from the valley. It was like a call to him. At night, unable to resist, the young man decided to go out. With his divine power, he leaped over the city wall from the inside in one go. And his speed had increased significantly. He also felt happy about returning to the valley. After arriving, without hesitation, the young man jumped into the water. The feeling of dying and coming back to life in this place is truly fun. Kai said aloud that he really liked the valley and also saw the bird that had called him there. It led Kai toward the stone tablet. He tried to touch it, but he still couldn't decipher the ancient language like the gravestone in Ida village. Knowing that he had survived until now thanks to the blessings of the god, Kai thought he had to express his sincerity and offer his heartfelt thanks. He diligently cleaned the stone tablet bit by bit, making it spotless. Moreover, he even buried the orc, because, after all, he had awakened thanks to that orc. After finishing the work, he ran up high to explore. For some reason, Kai could now see clearly in the dark. This must also be part of the god's protection. The area had a lot of vegetation and many delicious fruits. Kai thought this forest was rich in food, and that it's a pity not to live here, so he suddenly had the idea to build a house. First, he needed to chop wood, but he only had a short knife, which he couldn't use as an axe. The young man thought that using magic would be effective. So he tried it. He turned the fire on his hand into a blade, but when it touched the tree, the whole tree burst into flames. He thought, playing like this is stupid, there's a risk of burning down the entire forest, so he switched to another method. Since he could create fire, Kai was confident that he could do much more. Magic was formed based on imagination. He thought cutting something meant destroying its molecules. Since he didn't fully remember his past life's knowledge, Kai wondered, what are molecular bonds? Ignoring that, he knew he had to follow his intuition. What he was cutting wasn't the tree but untying the bonds inside. He kept creating an invisible blade piercing through. However, at that moment, the valley was invaded. For some reason, the orcs were there searching for something. Kai discovered a new tribe he had never seen before. Knowing that this group wanted to enter the valley, he subconsciously activated his guardian mark and rushed to stop them. About to attack, Kai regained his composure. The others spoke a different language that he didn't understand. They even threatened him with knives, but they were stopped. The old man knew Kai's language and introduced himself as Borech, the leader of the dwarf tribe. The old man knew humans' language since he used to interact with merchants. They were masters of craftsmanship, so their products were always considered valuable goods. First, he apologized for entering the forbidden area. They came here to ask for the ancient covenant with the great god of the valley. Seeing everyone kneel and bow, Kai didn't understand. Borech said that the god there looked like a human. Since ancient times, the dwarf tribe had lived in peace and worshipped the earth gods. But recently, the orcs had continuously attacked, putting the tribe at risk of extinction. That's why they had to run here to beg for help. A weak race like them couldn't possibly fight the towering orcs. The old man kept calling Kai the ancient judge, please save them from their current plight. He hoped he would listen to the tribe's pleas. Kai curiously asked what judge meant. Borech explained that it was someone who possessed great power surpassing all creatures and protecting all creations. He shook his head, not thinking he was so great. The spear carrier from before also told the leader about this, not believing that he was a god. It was said that the manifestation of the judge was a brave warrior who strictly punished those who disobeyed. This small human can't be the great figure in legend. Being seen as small, Kai was annoyed because he was still much taller than them. But the old man believed the truth. In his youth, he had angered the god by entering the valley without permission. As a result, his eyes were damaged. Although he could no longer see the sunlight, he possessed power and could see many other things. This world was filled with the light of spiritual energy, and Kai was emitting a very noble blue light that couldn't be mistaken. He was the manifestation of the god of the valley. After receiving this power, Kai had become the judge. That was absolutely true, not made up. In addition, they said that they had offered a sacrifice to the valley to ask permission to enter. That was his granddaughter Arugi, who vowed to dedicate her life to the valley. Hearing this, Kai disagreed with this approach and immediately went to see. Just then, the rope broke, so he jumped down to check. He didn't want anyone to die in this place and tried to do something. Seeing that the girl was seriously injured, he thought about a type of magic that could heal. Since he had healed himself, it meant he could heal someone. The young man concentrated on restoring all the damaged parts and cells in her body. Although he didn't know what this was, he finally succeeded. Kai was surprised that magic could also heal. Up above, things were starting to happen as the orcs had arrived. Many people had been killed. Kai was furious with this group for daring to set foot in his land. He went to the leader, but he threatened him back by activating his guardian mark. In Kai's head, a voice appeared, kill them all, engrave the pain into their bodies, and so fear so that no one dares to come here again. It seemed the god of the valley was very angry, and so was Kai. The old man vowed to contribute his meager strength, as he was also marked. The dwarves were loyal to the god of the valley and would try their best. Kai activated his guardian mark, making the hogs realize he was the master of this place. The leader still ordered his subordinates to attack. But Kai immediately defeated him. The old man also rushed in and killed one, being praised for his agile moves. The dwarf tribe inherited good fighting techniques. The rest depended on the judge, Kai. He stood up and sentenced them to death for daring to invade and defile this valley. The leader was scared and spoke in human language, begging for forgiveness, saying this was not a matter for the judge but an issue between the orc and dwarf tribes. He didn't care and said this was his business because they had entered the valley without permission. That was enough to warrant a death sentence. At this moment, power radiated from him, creating a blue light. Kai had merged with the god of the valley, saying, "For the peace of the valley, I will kill him now." The image of the god also appeared behind him, staring the enemy, who bowed and begged but only received a shake of his head. Pushed to the brink, he tried to do something, but with a wind blade, Kai cut off his arm, leaving everyone not understanding what had just happened. Immediately after, the final verdict stabbed straight into his chest to extract the divine stone, proving the victory. He had sown terror in everyone and also understood many things. He was no longer confused, for this was the god of the valley who used the blue flame to burn his eyes. This god had no mercy for invaders but also bestowed mercy on those who deserved it. Kai was the great manifestation wielding the balance of life. The god of justice had watched over the world since the age of the gods, and above all, was the judge. After obtaining the god's vein from the monster, Kai was reminded that absorbing it would grant immense power. This was the first time he had defeated someone bearing a god's crest, so the godstone was clearly larger than those from other individuals. The dwarves were thrilled that Kai was about to take the protection away from that pig. It seemed that whoever consumed the god's vein of a crest bearer would absorb the earth god's power and inherit the protection. However, if one didn't want to, they could consume it like any other godstone. Old Man Polek advised Kai to take advantage of this to increase his own strength, so he would be powerful enough to protect the valley. Hearing this, Kai cut off some of the godstone and shared it with the old man as a reward for his contribution. Polek was grateful and consumed that energy to strengthen himself, but it seemed a bit too potent for him. Nevertheless, Kai took a gulp and drained it all at once. Immediately after, his body reacted. The soul of the earth god blessing the pig also escaped, as it was not of the same caliber as the god in the valley. When a crest bearer died, the soul of the god would return to a sacred site. More importantly, Kai started feeling discomfort in his chest. It seemed this was the effect of eating the god's vein of a crest bearer. Kai said he was fine and just needed to return to the valley to rest, also asking them to stay away from there. While unconscious, Kai recalled a childhood memory of losing his family and loved ones to monsters. When he woke up, he was surprised to find Old Man Polek's granddaughter, Arugi, lying beside him. He asked her what she was doing there and why she didn't go home. Arugi was worried about him, the god's protector, so she had covered him with a blanket. She had already vowed to dedicate herself to the god in the valley, so she only asked that Kai heed the plea of her clansmen. From now on, she would always be there to serve, that was her role. However, Kai didn't want that and advised her to return to her people. Arugi refused, as her grandfather had said that doing so would bring disaster upon everyone. Kai found it annoying and tried to send her back, but she wouldn't listen. He had saved her life, so she would serve the god's protector forever. After arguing for a while, they heard a bird chirping, making Kai realize it was morning. He needed to return to the village, so he advised Arugi to go home. The dwarves were still waiting for him to allow them to live there, as they would surely die if they left. They were willing to dedicate themselves to the god in the valley. Their homeland was being attacked by orcs, so even temporarily, they hoped for a place of refuge in the valley to live. Seeing them all bowing like that, the god judge reluctantly agreed but forbade them from setting foot in the valley. Just as he was about to leave, the old man reminded Kai of a few things to avoid danger after returning to the village. Kai hurried to the meeting spot to spar with Lady Jose. She asked him what he had been doing that made him late. He pretended to say, "I overslept," and then started training. In another development, Baron Vegin went to Manso to ask where Kai was. Somehow, they ended up in a sparring match, and everyone was surprised that the Baron had chosen Kai as his training partner today. The reason was that Kai had bravely protected the lady earlier, so the father wanted to test his strength. The two brothers also watched intently. Kai didn't want this to happen and was advised not to use any dirty tricks, even when desperate, or the Baron would get angry. The youth was also praised for being able to repel a group of long-tailed monkeys. Of course, this was just a practice match, so he wouldn't really be killed. Luckily, he had been reminded by Mr. Polek that he had to hide his identity as a god's crest bearer for a while, as he had only recently inherited this power, which made him vulnerable to other crest bearers. Before mastering his power, he shouldn't let others know. Kai knew he had to try hard to restrain himself so that the divine symbol wouldn't appear. The fight immediately began. Indeed, the Baron possessed immense power, and the weapon he used was very heavy, but his skillful technique caused Kai's divine symbol to appear. Luckily, no one had noticed, as they were all focused on Mr. Vegin. The next second, it disappeared, so he could continue fighting. Seeing that look, the Baron was very pleased and wanted to have a bit more fun. Being inferior in size and strength, he was quickly disarmed. However, he didn't give up but rushed straight in to grab the opponent's legs with the intention of knocking him down. The two brothers were shocked to see that this guy had the strength to lift one of their father's legs. The Baron then kneed Kai away. Jose was pleased to see that was all he could do and that he wasn't stronger than her. While Kai was panting, Mr. Vegin smiled contentedly, saying he liked Kai very much. That's why, from tomorrow, he would personally train the youth to become even stronger. He didn't like it, but it was an order, so he reluctantly accepted, thinking to himself that this father and daughter were crazy, always making him fight. Jose was also happy because there was no one here who could fight with her father like her, thinking that she would have to be even stricter tomorrow. The brothers then came to help him up, but still smiled because they saw the youth being beaten. Manso teased him, saying, "Don't worry, if you die, we'll bury you properly." Elsa, who witnessed the whole incident, was very worried about Kai. It turned out that she had known him since she was a child, which was why she was always paying attention to him. A few days later, when night fell, the youth woke up to go to the valley, so he ran straight to his favorite valley. He hadn't had any time to go to the stone tablet because he had been harshly trained by that father and daughter. He also greeted his god with a word. Somehow, he also discovered that a small house had been built next door. When he went inside to take a look, he saw Arugi happily welcoming him. She had built this house herself these days and was waiting for him. When he asked if the dwarves had entered here without permission, he learned that they hadn't. Seeing the many wounds on her hands, he believed her but still had to send her away, but she wouldn't listen. She immediately took out food to tempt him. For some reason, she had been able to harvest a lot of things here. Her cooking skills were flawless, it looked delicious just by looking at it. The food came at a price, but it was too good to resist. Aru, seeing Kai eat like this, also brought a lobster. He recounted that he had never eaten so much since he was a child. After returning to the village to work at noon, the youth was surprised to be given 3 times as much food. The Kainat thought he had been working too hard lately and felt sorry for him. The brothers saw this and asked where the fairness was, but they were scolded like dogs. They did little work but wanted to eat a lot, while Kai had almost plowed an entire field. It made sense, but the 3 brothers were still not satisfied, and Manso was also teasing him outside, saying, "Youth has arrived." Elsa, who had been watching the whole time, ended up scooping too much food for him. The brother thought she liked him, but immediately after, it was taken back. In the following days, whenever Kai was free, he would go to the valley to help Arugi with her work. During the day, he practiced with the lady, and at noon, he had to work in the fields. Everything was going very smoothly. Kai was also starting to have feelings for the little dwarf. Seeing her living alone here was a bit pitiful, so whenever he was free, he would run over to play. Besides, he was happy to see the dwarf clan starting to thrive again. The next day, they encountered a large stone blocking the road that no one could push away. Fortunately, Mr. Vegin happened to be passing by, so he came to help. With his strength alone, everyone initially didn't believe he could lift it, but immediately after, the large stone was lifted, making everyone admire him. Thanks to this power, the land became more fertile, and from now on, the crops would grow even better, making it well worth the effort. That night, inspired, Kai began to learn how to help plants grow, but he was unsuccessful. He thought he still had a lot to learn as a god's crest bearer. A few days later, seeing Elsa walking to the flower field, Kai came to ask how she was doing. The two had been playing together a lot lately. The friend said that the flower garden was blooming more beautifully than in other years. Initially, these were all seeds that they had brought from their old village. When their village was burned down, the people at least wanted to save the flowers, so they brought the seeds. Although the village was gone, there were more flowers than before, which was comforting. Speaking of this, Kai remembered that this friend was also born in his village a long time ago. Hearing this, Elsa glared at him because he dared to forget his fellow countrymen. He apologized, saying, "I was too young when the village was burned down, how could I remember your face?" Unlike the youth, Elsa was always watching his actions and praised him for being so great as to attract the attention of the Baron and the lady. Kai humbly said, "Compared to them, I still have a lot to learn, I have to be stronger. For those who no longer have family or relatives, they have to be stronger." Kai had said this when he was a child, so Elsa also recounted that when their village was destroyed and Kai was crying alone, but after seeing a monkey attack, he was not afraid and rushed to stall, which allowed her to survive to this day. She thought everyone would be killed back then. But fortunately, Mr. Vegin came to save them. Recalling this, Kai remembered that he had indeed met him before and had boldly declared that he would definitely become stronger. He recounted that he had been desperate back then, while everyone was waiting for death to come, he couldn't do anything. After saying this, he laughed because he didn't know why he had forgotten that memory. Elsa still clearly remembered how Kai had protected everyone, saying, "You haven't changed at all." Cut to the forest. At this time, a stronger group of orcs came to eliminate the group of long-tailed monkeys. The leader didn't bother to activate his god's crest but was still strong enough to defeat the leader on the other side in one hit. The monkey possessing the crest was slashed down, and the next target of this group was the valley where the dwarves are currently living. Kai still comes here often. Today, Aru has created a new item and is showing it off. A few days later, Kai was assigned to clean the food storage. He wondered if he could make rice cakes with these ingredients. Just then, Elsa walked by and, hearing him, curiously asked what rice cakes were, as they sounded strange. Kai didn't know how to explain, though he'd never tried them in this life. He was willing to bet they were delicious. His older brother then came in, urging him to move the food onto the cart. The others looked jealous that Kai was being chatted up by a girl while working. It turned out that the inspector was on his way, so they had to hide some of the food to avoid being taxed. Aura wondered if this was really necessary. Grain was certainly precious, but it wouldn't hurt to give the people a little more. Sir Vegin explained that the village's reserves were low this year, which was why they needed to hide some to ensure the livelihood of the people. The son thought it wouldn't kill them to eat a little less, and he wanted to give gifts to neighboring areas to gain influence with them. The father didn't think currying favor more than necessary would benefit their own people. Some villagers could starve because of it, and he didn't want that. Kai's group then hid the food in the underground storage. Manso told him that the incoming inspector was also a blessed, and that their divine emblem was said to be even more advanced than Sir Baron's. After everything was arranged, the whole village stood to welcome the inspector. He was Gondal, a fat, lecherous, and unpleasant man. On the way here, the group had been attacked by demi-humans, but they had been driven back by his men. Seeing Jose's beauty, the inspector approached her, and she acted tough to match her blessed status. He also suggested that women like her should just stay home and bear children, not fight. Aura was also reminded to drive back the demi-humans. Kai noticed the man walking last in the group. He had nothing to do with the inspector's group, but seemed to have fought monsters. This person introduced himself as Nada, sent from the monastery. Later, the inspector's group entered the storage to check the goods. Seeing that there wasn't much this year, he scoffed that the Lord's training must be affecting productivity, implying that he wasn't working hard. He also threatened that a remote village was plotting to hide their harvest, implying that the Baron wouldn't do such a thing, right? Sir Vegin bowed and explained that the weather had been bad recently, which had affected the harvest. Hearing this, the sly fox used this as an excuse to stay. Though the three father and son disliked it. They had to agree. Jose looked displeased that the family would have to coddle that old man. The father was gentler, explaining that Inspector Gondal was the king's representative, and they had to welcome him wherever he went. Their village belonged to the unified kingdom, so they couldn't be rude in front of him. Outside, Kai went to see the monk to ask him questions. He was grateful that he was praying for the fallen. Surprisingly, he had heard about Kai, the one who ate many godstones to become stronger, and said they were alike. It turned out that at the monastery, this man also ate a lot of godstones, considering it part of his training and a shortcut to gaining power. Hearing this, Kai was very interested, and asked how strong he was compared to other blessed. Nada activated his divine emblem and stated that he wasn't actually protected by any god, he just tried to train and gain this power through consuming many godstones. Inside, the inspector was being served with a mountain of delicious food. However, he wasn't satisfied, complaining that this place only had rustic fare, while the villagers couldn't even dream of touching it. Even so, Gondal continued to ask for more. The village warriors, who had their food portions cut, resented the inspector, because now that he was staying, they had to put on a show to avoid revealing the hidden food. In another development, the monk was discussing with the Baron the huge orge lurking deep in the remote area. What was worrisome was that their numbers were more than ordinary groups. Aura wondered if there would be a full-scale invasion of human lands. Nada wasn't sure, but with that many it was very dangerous. Monastery M believed that they had some purpose, so they gathered in such large numbers, and that this direction was their route of movement in the coming days. He needed to pursue them to find out the monster's purpose, but he wasn't familiar with the terrain here, so he begged for help from the Baron. Hearing this, Sir Vegin supported the monk, saying he didn't need to bow. Of course, they would agree to help and send experts to escort him. That night, Kai visited Arugi again, and told her that he was busy and wouldn't be able to come for a while. She was a little sad because she liked Kai, and feared he would abandon her here without returning to the valley. He reassured her not to worry, because the blessed had a responsibility to their land, so he would definitely protect this valley forever. Afterwards, Kai met with Old Man Polek to ask for advice since he was going to follow them. According to him, the target could be the pigs that were defeated here before. This was serious, but Kai confidently said he was prepared for it. The next morning, the young lady was sent to follow the monk to learn. Normally, this would be the job of the eldest son, Aura, but he had to pursue the monkeys that attacked the inspector. Besides, since Kai was going, the Baron was quite reassured. At this time, the young man was given food by his girlfriend. Though she didn't know how to make rice cakes, Elsa still spent time researching how to make them. Accepting the gift, Kai grew pensive, and suddenly remembered his mother, saying that over the years, the memories of her had always been vague. Before he could finish speaking, Manso called him away, so he thanked the kind girl. Thus, the group followed the monk's trail. The young lady Jose was going to ask Kai what he thought about girls standing up to fight, but was a little shy, so she stopped. Later, they discovered that there had recently been a conflict between the monkeys and the pigs, with corpses littering the area, which puzzled Jose. Nada thought the orgy he was pursuing had caused this. The fact that there were more monkey corpses than pig corpses meant that there was a huge difference in strength. The leader of the orgy was an extremely powerful individual. More importantly, they still didn't know their true goal. The monk then told the other two about the prophecy that an unavoidable, powerful god would appear in this remote land. He was pursuing the orgy to find the location of the tomb, because it was said that any species that possessed that god would gain great power. The monastery had to ensure that this power didn't fall into the hands of the monsters. The information about the god dwelling in this land was unknown. The prophecy only said that an untamed spirit who refused to yield had awakened its power and reached the heavens, but in essence it was both light and darkness. This power should be feared and respected. Kai suddenly realized that the prophecy might be referring to him, the one who received the blessing of the god in the valley. Continuing to move, they saw a heavily ravaged village, and couldn't ignore it, so they went to see if they could save anyone, but it seemed they were all dead. The Yuzels were a peaceful race that had no hostility towards humans. Their horns had been cut off to be used as decorations, and there were orge axes as well. Nada then asked to separate to investigate the god of the land here, and Kai was sent by his brother to assist. Thus, they split up to search for the injured. Entering the main hall, the monk used fire to light it up. Surprisingly, Kai had no reaction, which made him realize that Kai already knew about this ability. He tried to deflect by talking about the tombstone of the god of the land at this village. On the other hand, Rose found a trail of blood leading to the house, thinking there was someone inside, but it turned out to be an orge. In Kai's place, he was trying to translate the ancient language, and also discovered a dead warrior. Bringing them all outside, they saw only pigs, which meant that the village wasn't attacked by the main force. Judging by the clothes of the person just carried out, it was probably the Baron of the village. Most likely she was a blessed and had stood up to fight. This gave Jose more faith that she could also do as the divine emblem holders did. The hypothesis was that this girl had fought all three powerful orge at the same time because she wanted everyone to escape, so she chose to use her body as a shield to buy time, which was why so few villagers had died. Despite the difference in strength, that girl was still very strong. What helped her overcome fear was her love for the people. That's what the monk thought. Kai was also informed about the mission of the blessed. No matter how strong the enemy, the blessed individual must not back down. After burying the victims, they asked about the information on the tombstone. Nada said it had nothing to do with the god he was looking for. However, he had learned one thing, that the main force of the pigs was elsewhere. Based on the battle with the monkeys earlier in this village, they calculated that the remaining orge were heading towards the forest, and perhaps the tomb of the god he was looking for was there. Suddenly Kai realized that this direction was the valley and the dwarves were in danger, so he asked to go scout alone, because he was very confident in his speed. Hearing this, the monk agreed to let him go. As for the group of dwarves, they were also receiving news that a group of orge was heading straight for the valley. As predicted, the old man, hearing this, wanted to scout himself to grasp the situation in time. In another development, the villagers had noticed strange movements from the group of monkeys. Aura kept moving closer and also discovered a large number of monsters. They seemed to be preparing for war. To deal with that many enemies, at least 100 people would be needed. However, since their current numbers were too small, the elder suggested retreating. Aura still looked like he wanted to fight, but seeing that everyone else insisted on going back, he followed suit. Recently, the situation had become much more dangerous. The orcs and monkeys had been showing unusual behavior continuously. The group escorting Lady Jose could do nothing but wait for Kai to return with news. Unless they knew exactly where the orcs were heading, they wouldn't dare act. The girl, getting impatient from waiting, thought she should have gone with them. Since it wasn't too dark yet, she wanted to chase after them right away. Monk Nada advised her to trust the young man. He was confident that Kai would return safely, so she shouldn't worry. To ease their minds, the monk climbed to a high place and used his monk abilities to search for the protagonist. His 1,000-mile vision technique could scan a certain range, and with some luck, he might be able to spot some important information. As for Kai, he was rushing back to the valley. Upon seeing numerous footprints, he deduced that the enemy's numbers were immense. Suddenly, from within the bushes, the dwarves sprang out and attacked him, mistaking the young man for an enemy. It seemed that Polek had led these people to intercept the orcs' advance. After Kai explained the situation, they began chasing the monster horde. He complained, saying he had already told them to let him handle things in the valley. But one of them responded, "We have our own reasons to protect that place. The villagers are building homes and settling there now, so of course we have to defend it." As Polek had said, they were devoted to the god of the valley, and hoped to help Kai even if just a little. In turn, doing so was also a way of protecting themselves. Nearby, the orcs were cutting down trees en masse to clear a path. With such numbers, a head-on fight would be extremely dangerous. But Kai, on the other hand, wanted to strike quickly and decisively before they could invade the valley. Just as he finished saying that, the orc leader spotted them. At the same time, the gluttonous inspector was still gobbling up everything in sight while constantly complaining about how disgusting the food was. Elsa, seeing this, bent down to clean up, only for the lecherous old man to start ogling her pretty face. He was about to ask her to pour him a drink so he could flirt with her, when the head chef arrived with more dishes and also poured him wine, helping Elsa step away. Elsa bowed her head and thanked Adelia. Seeing the girl looking downcast, Adelia comforted her and said, "Don't make that face. If Kai comes back and sees it, he'll be disappointed." Just then, Aura returned and announced, a war was about to begin. Back at Kai's location, he was currently sparring with the orcs. The ordinary ones couldn't even land a hit on him. With support from several dwarf warriors, Kai grew noticeably more confident. The rest of the orcs, seeing the scene, began to hesitate. Seeing this, the orc leader stepped forward to engage Kai in a one-on-one duel. It was far larger and stronger than the others, at least 100 times more powerful, and even possessed a divine emblem. Judging by the pattern, Polak realized that this might be one of the infamous Ricteros. It was known that there were 6 such ferocious orcs on the continent, each carrying an extremely powerful earth god. Their goal was to make the northern orcs invincible. And so they were called Ricteros. Hearing that, Kai decided to go all out, telling the others to fall back and not interfere with the fight. At the same time, the monk's clairvoyant eye happened to witness the scene and realized that Kai was the one who possessed the god he had been searching for. The enemy didn't attack right away. Instead, he spoke of the previous wielder of the Valley God's power who had died some time ago and that he had heard nothing about the successor since then. Now, standing before him, Kai was the next one to inherit the will of the valley's deity. He had to thank the previous orcs for relentlessly pursuing the dwarves. Thanks to that, he was able to find this place. Just as Polak had predicted, the remnants of the orc horde had passed on this information, allowing the new enemy to arrive. The voice within Kai continued to echo, urging him to kill them all. He agreed, then charged into the fight. His opponent possessed overwhelming strength, while Kai focused more on speed, allowing him to dodge with ease. He weaved around and slipped behind the enemy, stabbing forward, but unfortunately, the orc's body was so tough that his spear snapped in half. Seeing this, Kai kicked the broken spearhead and drove it deeper into the opponent's body. However, this orc was unlike any other. Its wound healed almost instantly, in just a few seconds. Kai was soon captured, unable to do anything. Polak had never encountered anyone bearing a divine emblem who could regenerate at such an incredible rate. Their only hope now was that the enemy wasn't truly immortal. The orc, disappointed that Kai was chosen by the valley god, believed the deity must have greatly declined. He declared he would steal everything from Kai and invade the valley as well. Kai thought of Arugi and the children above. He couldn't bear to lose anything, so he immediately activated his magic. Flames erupted, burning the orc's arm, shocking everyone watching. The monk now understood why the monster hadn't seemed surprised when it saw the flames from Kai earlier. It was true that the magic was powerful. However, it still had many limitations, especially since the enemy fully understood this ability. As a result, in the next exchange, the monster managed to block the attack and prevented Kai from dealing any damage. Kai was blown away and shocked to see that his opponent could resist the flames. It seemed the spirit of the earth god residing within the orc had protected him. For deities who were familiar with the natural laws of this world, such things were even simpler. With sheer indomitable will, they could guard and heal their wounds. Kai was now at a disadvantage, as none of his techniques were working. Back in the village, Elsa and the others were hurriedly harvesting crops. She was deeply worried about the one she loved, hoping that Kai wouldn't run into any trouble. A great battle seemed about to begin, and no one could predict what would happen. At that moment, Kai had been completely overwhelmed by the enemy's defenses. The rice ball Elsa had made for him was flung to the side. Seeing Kai utterly exhausted, the orc didn't immediately kill him. Instead, it approached to stomp him, its gaze fixed on the food his girlfriend had prepared. Kai suddenly remembered that he still had a skill he hadn't used. He picked up the rice balls and pretended to have lost the will to fight, while thinking to himself, I need to surpass the laws of nature to the point where even the earth god within that guy can't protect him. He wondered whether the gods of this world even understood atoms and molecules. At the same time, he activated the wind blade on his arm. The orc, full of confidence, declared he would seize the power of the valley god. Just as he swung his axe down, his arm was suddenly severed, leaving everyone stunned. In pain and rage, the orc charged with his remaining arm, only to be sliced in half by Kai's blade, a strike that defied all known natural laws. Witnessing this scene, the monk finally felt at ease and deactivated his clairvoyant eye, surprised that Kai had wielded a divine power never seen before. Below, everyone sensed an approaching rainstorm and began to worry. Rose suddenly collapsed, sending the crowd into panic and concern. After winning the battle, Kai directly absorbed the opponent's divine stone and drank the sacred emblem dry, erupting with immense power. He forcibly subdued the earth god to claim its strength. With their leader defeated, the orcs were terrified and fled. Soon after, Kai fell into a coma, leaving the dwarf grandpas and grandsons deeply worried. After a period of unconsciousness, Kai finally woke up. He asked what had happened, but they said they were about to ask him the same thing. After eating the god stone, he had suddenly collapsed. Regarding the enemy Kai defeated, that orc definitely possessed a powerful earth god, and after Kai took the god stone, its connection was severed. The light phenomenon surrounding Kai was likely the cry of the absorbed god. After cleaning himself up, Kai asked if anyone had felt an uncomfortable gaze watching them during the battle. His companion had felt it too, but ignored it because the gazer didn't seem hostile. Having taken care of that, the dwarves would return to the valley, and Kai would return to the others. Due to fighting so much, the young man's stomach was growling. Fortunately, he still had some of Elsa's rice cakes, so he took them out to eat. After finishing up, the main character returned and learned that Rose had fallen into a coma. After seeing the wound on her leg, Kai asked the monk Nada if he recognized it, and wanted to know what he had learned from the orc army. He pretended that after approaching the orc army, they had already been defeated by someone, and the armored figure was there with the dead leader, probably for that reason the other ran in fear. So the situation was, he said, that they need to bring the young lady back to get treat right away. That was their most immediate thing, so Nada didn't ask any more questions. Along the way, he reminded the young man to be careful of the blood on him. And after returning to the village, they were shocked to see the scene of utter devastation. It seemed that they had just endured an attack from the monkey horde. To be safe, Kai scouted ahead to see what the situation inside was like. Many had lost their lives in this monster uprising. The main character ran up and asked Uncle Bosco what had happened, and learned that the entire village had been targeted by the monkeys in vast numbers. Luckily, they had Lord Vegan on their side, so the situation had been salvaged, though as Kai could see, the damage was enormous. The monkeys were experts at throwing stones, so the villagers had all been evacuated to the castle. Kai hurried off to find his friend. He called out Elsa's name and was relieved to hear her answer. Thankfully she wasn't hurt. She was also very worried about Kai. Afterward, Lord Vegan seemed unsurprised to find his daughter in a coma. It turned out that Aura had suffered a similar condition already. The monk said that these symptoms were caused by the monkeys. After checking on Aura, he was no better off than Rose. Scouts had determined that the monkey forces had grown in number and appeared to be preparing for another attack. Kai sat in the village, looking disheartened, because he hadn't expected the damage to be so extensive. Elsa mentioned that she, her mother and her younger sister had managed to evacuate here just in time. Though scared, she felt safe whenever she thought of Kai's face. Kai thanked her, saying that he had won thanks to the food she had made. Before they could confide in each other, Manso arrived with a message that Lord Vegan wanted to see him. Inside, the young man continued to conceal the fact that he had defeated all the orcs. Now, the only threat was the monkey horde. To change the tide, they needed to cleanse the curse from the two individuals bearing the mark of protection. The monk, Nada, said it was the result of a curse placed on the gravestones of the gods they possessed. The clever monkeys were using this method to neutralize the strongest warriors on our side. Not only that, but they were about to launch another attack. Therefore, before that happened, Lord Vegan wanted to ask Kai and the monk to lift the curse from Rose, trusting in Kai's strength. Nada had no objections. The location was the abandoned village that Kai and Jose had cleaned previously, and the gravestone of the god Rose possessed was not far from there. The survival of the village depended on this mission, so Lord Vegan was relying entirely on Kai. From now on, it would be a race against time. As the young man headed downstairs, he overheard the sound of the old monk, Gondel, playing around. Kai wondered if this person also carried the mark of protection, and if he could possibly be of any help. The monk hoped so, but that was likely very difficult. The two agreed to meet at the north gate to prepare. Taking the opportunity, Kai hurried off to find his friend, praising her delicious rice cakes. He said he wanted to eat more, but he had a mission now. He told her to be careful and promised he would be back soon. He also promised that when everything was over, he'd take her to a special place. The two held hands for a moment and then reluctantly parted ways. After arriving at the meeting point, Kai saw the bag of tools and knew they were the implements needed to break the curse. Monk Nada asked Kai if he had gone to see anyone just now, but the young man kept it a secret. For Nada, beyond this gate lay the worldly life he had abandoned. He was the son of an impoverished nobleman. Although he had studied diligently in order to inherit his family's god, in the end, he received nothing. Since he no longer belonged there, Nada had come to the monastery to train every day. Seeing this life overflowing with love and affection, they had to try even harder to protect it. First they went to the village where Aura's earth god was worshipped. He was a skilled warrior and needed to recover as soon as possible. According to their observations, there were a few monkey soldiers guarding the perimeter. To get a clearer picture, his companion activated his heavenly eyes. The familiar sensation made Kai realize something. This was a secret technique that he learned at the monastery, which was very useful because it allowed him to see everything, regardless of the distance. After confirming that there were only 5 monkeys, they acted. Quickly approaching Kai charged into the fray, easily defeating 3. As he was about to finish off the rest, the monk took care of it, also discovering the dense god mark on Kai's face. He had unwittingly activated it without realizing it. The other man then bowed deeply and reintroduced himself. I am Nada, a truth-seeker sent by the monastery to search for the truth about the gods. He hoped that Kai would use the power of the wild god in his body for the benefit of a unified kingdom of mankind. Kai, not wanting that task, urged Nada to quickly lift the curse from Aura before the monkey horde arrived. While cleansing with holy water, he explained that the unified kingdom needed a new and powerful god like him. Kai realized that he had been brought here specifically to discuss this matter. Nada bluntly stated that the kingdom was weakening year by year, and Lord Gondel was a prime example of this. Although he possessed the god's mark, he indulged in the extravagance bestowed upon him by the king. As a result, the power of the gods supporting the king had seriously diminished. If prosperity were to return to its former state, an army would immediately be sent here to deal with the monkeys, rather than the village having to fend for itself. The number of tragedies was increasing, so they needed a powerful new god to change the situation. After removing all the stakes planted around the gravestone, Nada poured Lord Vejan's blood onto it. The god here served the god in their village, so doing this would connect them to Vejan. The exorcism ritual was deemed complete, and they prepared to move on to the next location. Outside, the monk thought that the monkeys must have been desperate to resort to this method of seizing their village. Casting a curse on the gravestones would cause the entire land to lose its vitality. They would also be affected, but since they had no other choice, they had gone this far. According to the monastery's research, the monkey kingdom was facing a great threat. Their invasion of the village was simply to find a new home for their entire tribe. Even the orcs were facing a similar situation. They were said to be threatened by a creature from the north. To defeat that creature, they needed a great new power, which was why someone so powerful had been sent to the valley to seek power. The monk shared all sorts of information, asking Kai if he was willing to lend the kingdom the power of his god to save millions of lives. Before he could agree, the god mark suddenly appeared, along with the words, "He must be killed." Kai pretended that there was too much information to process and that he needed to think it over. Back in the village, Aura had begun to recover, though he had yet to regain consciousness. That night, Kai and the monk returned to the gravestone that Lady Rose worshipped. Together, they succeeded in lifting the curse placed upon her. Standing above, Kai quietly reflected on how incredible the power of the valley god was, so extraordinary, in fact, that he still had no idea how to wield it properly. The thought that he could save so many people filled him with deep contemplation. What puzzled him most was why the god within him had suddenly flared up in anger and tried to kill Nada during that moment. Nada then appeared and explained that if Kai let his god participate in the royal tomb ritual, he would receive special favor from the divine king. With that divine blessing, saving the village and everyone he held dear would become far easier. Kai then asked, what about the dwarves? Since he also wanted to protect them. But the monk, knowing that the dwarves had begun to worship Kai, insisted that he abandon them. The royal tomb would not accept those who were revered by beings considered lowly demi-humans. Hearing that, Kai was immediately repulsed by such blatant racism. The monk bowed his head again and pleaded with Kai to devote all of his power to the unified kingdom. But Kai refused outright. Those bearing divine marks were meant to protect the people who lived on their lands. He would never serve a kingdom that required him to abandon innocent lives who looked up to him. Tension rose between the two. Nada pretended to back down in order to lower Kai's guard. But then, without warning, he drew a weapon and stabbed Kai straight through the body, leaving him in utter shock. Kai collapsed after Nada's surprise attack. Nada revealed that this knife, passed down in the monastery, was known as a god-slaying weapon. It pierced through the defenses of those bearing the mark of protection, simultaneously suppressing Kai's power. Kai asked for the reason, and Nada said that using the god's great power for his own land was both arrogant and dangerous. That power must be controlled by being added to the kingdom's mausoleum. The monk guessed that Kai couldn't understand the power within him, and also showed envy that such miraculous light would never belong to him, despite his immense efforts. Kai tried to activate his mark of protection to escape, but in vain. Nada wanted to take this opportunity to seize the god stone within Kai. The rising desire for divine power corrupted the monk. The pain would only last for a moment, so he wanted Kai to endure a little longer and to die in peace, as his achievements would be passed down in the unified kingdom forever. Just as he was about to stab straight into Kai's heart to extract it, Kai dodged. He struggled to land a hit, but divine power was continuously surging from him at that moment. Elsewhere in the village, everyone was trying to repair the fortress. Reinforcements would not arrive, so if they failed, they would all go to heaven together. Lord Vejan also stepped forward to encourage the warriors' fighting spirit. He himself would do everything to stop the monsters there. Even if they were short on troops, they would still fight until the very last moment. They would protect the village with their own hands until they could no longer hold weapons. Inside, the injured were being carefully attended to. Elsa's mother was also among them. Luckily, her life was not in danger. The two sisters were instructed to run to safety immediately if fighting began. Returning to Kai, he was being made to understand that his death would be useful and save many people. He did not deny that. However, he still needed to protect the valley and everyone in it. He resolved to draw his knife and fight back, saying, "You wouldn't understand. Because I was granted the gods' power to protect this land." As both sides prepared to engage, a third force appeared. At the same time, their village was under a full-scale attack. Everyone tried to hold shields against the large stones thrown by the monkey horde. This was a battle to the death, only one side was allowed to survive. Lord Vegan also joined the battle to protect his people. He wanted the monkeys to see the power of their village. The leading monkey on the other side, hearing this, continued to order firestones to be thrown. The new enemy that appeared where Kai was incredibly powerful, strong enough to fight on par with Nada. What's more, these weren't just one bearing a mark, all of them possessed divine emblems, making the battle intense. They spoke human language, calling them the ones who broke the curse, saying, "No one can survive and return." The other two were very surprised to learn that these were the ones who had cursed Lady Jose and Aura. So the enemy side was strong enough to possess so many bearing marks of protection. The wounds on Kai's body gradually healed. He swore he would make them pay for what they had done. After realizing the young man was also the chosen one of them lunged directly to attack but was dodged by Kai. The other two combined their strength and successfully threw him far away. The wound on his back was still throbbing, reducing Kai's mobility. As Nada approached, the enemy used a deadly move with a wind blade to intimidate him. The monkeys outside were wary, knowing the male lead possessed strange techniques. They were like birds in a cage, so there was no need to rush their attack. The monk didn't want the divine power he had found to be taken away, so he lent a hand. Cornered, Nada activated his mark to counterattack. However, that weak power couldn't do anything to the monkey. Seeing the danger, Kai rushed in to help, even though he had been stabbed by that guy earlier. Seeing this, Nada, for a moment, stood by Kai's side and used fire to drive away the monkeys. After several large explosions, both managed to escape to another spot. The monk also asked Kai what he was thinking, going to save someone who had tried to kill him. He said he didn't know, his body just moved on its own. Hearing that, he guessed why the valley god had bestowed such great power upon him. Outside, the monkeys were still hunting and killing everywhere. If they faced the three god-marked foes alone, they would surely die. The monk requested cooperation. Knowing he was at a disadvantage, Kai agreed. Nada seemed to have given up on seizing the god stone, telling Kai to follow his instructions if he wanted to live. After discussing the plan, both sides agreed to settle their differences after everything was over. Nada didn't want to die right now. Wanting to know how far Kai's abilities would develop, they split up to trick the monkeys. Kai was responsible for luring them. The opponents were very clever, splitting into many different directions to cause trouble. Not only that, but they also knew how to use words to provoke. Nada was on one side, using his heavenly eye to support himself. Following the instructions, Kai successfully countered one that intended to stab him stealthily. To their surprise, the other two also had to retreat, wondering why he could predict that move. Observing from above, the monk's eyes saw everything and continued to give instructions. Thanks to this, when another one rushed from the right, he was prepared and successfully lightly deflected its head. Kai's invisible wind blade was an advantage, coupled with reminders from an experienced person, they formed a formidable duo for any opponent. Very quickly, Kai eliminated the second one, so Nada also rushed out. He didn't expect the power of the god within the male lead to be so great. The remaining one, annoyed, no longer aimed at him but stabbed the monk. He successfully stopped it, but unfortunately, this one was very strong, and the staff couldn't pierce through. On the contrary, Nada was the one who suffered fatal damage. Seeing this, Kai rushed to help, successfully slicing the enemy in half. He was praised for doing very well. The moment the three monkeys died was also when Aura woke up. He completely didn't remember what had happened to him. Outside, loud explosions continuously echoed. Knowing it was the monkeys, he also wanted to join the fight but was advised to rest a little longer. Aura refused, demanding clothes and a sword to teach those monkeys the might of the Moloch house. Where Kai was, he also tried to save Nada by letting him absorb the god stones of the three monkeys. Unfortunately, the stone inside him was severely damaged and could no longer be salvaged. His vision was fading, and his mind was becoming hazy, so it was highly likely his journey would end here. Hearing that, the young man tried to use healing magic to treat him. Seeing this, Nada was very shocked, asking where he had learned this. The important thing was that the wound didn't heal. Nada was quite happy to witness yet another miracle from Kai. Thinking the Valley God had bestowed upon him a power beyond human standards and reach. Thanks to this, Kai could use it to control fate. In his final moments, Nada admitted his foolishness. At least he had witnessed the power he had always wanted to see from Kai. He also wished Kai could find peace for himself later on. Having said that, the monk closed his eyes and passed away, making Kai a little sad. Along with that sadness, a heavy rain continuously poured down. In the village, Jose finally woke up. She knew a big battle was happening, so she tried to help her father and brother. A message from Vejin was also conveyed to her. That was, if necessary, she should flee the village and find a way to survive. His saying that meant the outcome of this battle was still unknown. Vejin didn't want Jose to fight. This made her very sad because in the end, she still wasn't recognized. After all, she was just a woman. Going outside, she saw many seriously injured people, and the young lady allowed everyone to freely use her father's room for rest. The Moloch family would fulfill their duty of repelling the demi-humans, so they could rest assured. A few soldiers went to the fat man's room but didn't find him. They thought he would step up to help fight, but there was no way that would happen. Gondal and his subordinates wanted to escape from this place, believing they couldn't hold out much longer. Above, Elsa, undeterred by danger, brought food and drinks to the warriors. Although it wasn't delicious, they were extremely grateful. After going down and seeing Gondal trying to open the back door, they began to worry. He wanted to return to the capital immediately. A soldier went down to stop him because this door was very important and not allowed to be opened. As soon as he finished speaking, Gondal directly stabbed the soldier. He even took Elsa hostage to force everyone to retreat. When asked why he did that, he said he didn't care about a remote village. Even if they were all wiped out, it wouldn't matter. With that, he cut the rope, causing the gate to open and creating an opportunity for the enemy to enter. Mansoa was furious that wretched Gondal had opened the gate and even taken someone from their side hostage. The situation became extremely dire as the village's defensive advantage was gone. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay updated when the channel releases a new video. Thank you. Thank you for watching my video. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay updated when the channel releases a new video. Thank you.